Good morning. Welcome to week 2 of Organizational Behavior and Ethics. I'd like to talk about 3 things very briefly that I hope you will take a chance to listen to before you dig into the week's content. The first is some feedback on last week. Next, a little bit about the topics of this week, and then finally a little bit about the mechanics of the course that some of you may not be quite on top of yet. So first of all, last week, it was a good start for many of you. Some of you did not appear to be quite ready for that first week. You know by now that there is a good bit of reading that you need to master. Please do spend some time with the reading before you get started, and that the reading needs to be reflected in the posts that you make in response to the question prompts in the forums. The first forum last week, I thought we had a really good discussion about the challenges and opportunities. It was nice to see that many of you chose a different challenge and opportunity to talk about. Everyone didn't just talk about globalism or diversity. There were also some on social media, etc. The second forum, there was perhaps a little bit of confusion in my questions. Most of you stayed within the topic of diversity that was talked about in Chapter 2 of Robbins and Judge. I also wanted you to bring in knowledge of Chapter 3 in Farrell, Friedrich, and Farrell, the ethical issues that they mention there. Many of you believed that the diversity issues were of highest priority in your organization. I believe it was to Gabriella that I responded with regards to a healthcare institution. Now, I'm wondering if the diversity issue of incivility between doctors and nurses and other hospital employees often feel that doctors are being incivil or intimidating in the way they relate to others. But if you compare that diversity issue, which yes is also an ethical issue, to another ethical issue discussed in Chapter 3, Farrell, Friedrich, and Farrell, privacy. If you went to the president or the CEO of that same hospital and said, where are you going to focus your priority and your money on dealing with the issue with incivility of doctors towards other hospital employees, or are you going to deal with the issue of privacy of patients? Where do you think they would want to focus? I think probably privacy of patients. Privacy was one of the issues mentioned in Chapter 3 of Farrell, Friedrich, and Farrell, among other issues, since theft, misuse of time and resources of the company by employees. One of you, in fact, talked about that with social media, the misuse of time and resources within a company, but then you didn't carry that over into the next forum talking about ethical issues. So pay attention to all of those readings before you get started. I want to come back to that issue about incivility between doctors and other hospital employees and privacy, because that's kind of a segue into our week 2, where we look at values and personalities and the role that plays in your satisfaction at your workplace and overall turnover in an organization. I have a good friend out in California who worked for American Girl for many, many years. She was in good alignment with the mission and the values of the organization. She loved that place. She believed in empowering girls. She believed in creating toys that also would teach, as the stories behind the American Girls dolls did. However, when she was transferred from the Chicago store to the LA store, she found that she absolutely could not work with her new boss. She was a senior trainer, and her boss, the head of HR out there, had an extreme personality clash. Diana, my friend, was all business, wanted to come in and get down to work. Her boss wanted to chit-chat and socialize in order to build the relationship before getting into the day's work, and that drove Diana to distraction. It's a personality issue. Diana ended up leaving American Girl, and that was 10 years ago. She still hasn't found that same alignment with mission that she had at American Girl. If Gabriella, for instance, if she highly believed in that priority of incivility, and the CEO did not deal with that because had to choose instead between those priorities and focus on privacy, Gabriella might feel what we call cognitive dissonance, which means that there's noise going on in your head. There's so much you're concerned about within the day-to-day of the organization that you become unproductive. You're no longer able to focus purely on the job. You're going to be talking about personality and values this week, and the role that that plays in employee satisfaction. Make sure that you do the reading, because the reading talks very much about that this week. This week you're also going to be talking about ethics, business ethics, and social responsibility, how those two interrelate, how they're different, and you may have different takes on that. I hope you do have differing perspectives that will enrich our discussion together, but please make sure that what you write about demonstrates knowledge of the reading and shows me that you're learning from the course material. There is a difference between social responsibility and ethics, although they are related. I think that's all I need to say about content from last week and this week. Just a few mechanics in addition to making sure that you're paying attention to the reading. Also pay attention to the deadlines. The Wednesday deadline is there for a reason. It's so that everyone has an opportunity to read what you have written and be able to reflect on it and write about, give you feedback and respond to it thoughtfully, not just with a question and a comment, but a real discussion prior to the deadline on Friday. I've given you that deadline so that you can focus on your personal application journal by the end of the day on Saturday. Also pay attention to the self-checks. Before you may want to write your form contributions in Word and then copy and paste into the discussion. You can check them against the self-checks before you post to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. The self-checks are posted in the module each week. Also pay attention to the scoring rubrics. I hope that I explained them sufficiently in my feedback to you in your grades last week. If not, please visit the scoring rubrics so that you will understand your grades, but also know what you need to do to get a good grade in the course. Because today is Labor Day and a holiday, you have a little bit later start this week. The original deadlines remain, however. You need to have your original contributions to the two forums done by Wednesday and your discussion posts to the contributions made by others done by Friday night, your PAJ done by Saturday. I hope you have a good week this week. You will be working in teams. You will not be able to access your form until you post your own original contribution, and then you will see that only your group members will be involved. I think you'll find that easier. You won't have to wade through everyone else's contributions. as you think about your own, and you won't have so many choices in terms of who you're going to engage with through the remainder of the week. We are not back together again as a whole group until week 6. If after this week you think you would like to get back in with the full group earlier, give me a heads up, but do that soon, and I can reprogram us to a larger discussion. But I do think you'll find the smaller groups helpful in terms of getting your work done. I've talked long enough. Some of you've probably already turned off this video. But please, once again, if you have concerns or questions, don't hesitate to email me or even set up a telephone discussion. Have a great week. I look forward to engaging with the teams in the team discussions.